So Sue, why don't you kick off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your role and your ministry?
Okay, so my name is Reverend Sue Fordyce. I'm a priest in our Wellington Diocese within New Zealand. I'm also, in that context, I'm one of the Vicar Generals of the diocese and also one of the two Chancellors of the diocese. So I have that kind of diocesan role. But currently, in my relationship with Kooyoora, the primary role I have is that I am one of 4 people who have been asked by our province to manage and spearhead the whole of our provincial response to the recent Royal Commission of Inquiry into Abuse in State and Faith-Based Care. That commission reported back in 2020, and from about that time, or 2022, we have been working towards what it looks like to have a really wholehearted response as a church. Our province sounds quite enormous because it contains all of New Zealand, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and all of the Pacific, which is, millions of square miles kind of thing. It contains 5 different countries and a multitude of languages. However, when it comes to size, the entire province is about the size of the Diocese of Melbourne. In an Australian context. So we're both very, very distributed, but also not that grand. And so when it came to thinking about our response, we needed to try to understand and find a way to respond, particularly within the complaints and redress space, that was bluntly fit for purpose, given our size and our incredibly distributed nature. So we have what's called a 3 tikanga church, and that means we have tikanga Pākehā, which has 5 dioceses, tikanga Māori, which has, 7 dioceses, tikanga Māori, which has 5 huiamarangi, which is the equivalent of a diocese within the tikanga Māori context, and then a diocese of Polynesia. So we've got all of these different bodies, lots of bishops. And pihopa, which is the Maori term for bishop, 3 archbishops. So that's our overall context.
Fantastic.
And I speak for kind of Te Korowai, which is the group that we formed. There's 4 of us, a retired archbishop of a Pākehā diocese, a now pihopa of one of our largest tikanga Māori huiamarangi, myself, and then Faye Tevi, who is from the Pacific and is Vicar General for the Diocese of the Pacific.
Great, thank you. Now, Sue, what did you know about Kooyoora before engaging with us?
As a church, we probably knew very little except for one thing, and that was that Archbishop Philip Freer was incredibly complimentary about Kooyoora and explained and told us, and we had a team come from the Diocese of Melbourne to talk to us about their experience with Kooyoora. And so that was both an introduction and an advertisement.
And so how would you describe working with us now that you are engaged with us?
Oh, look, we have had what feels like a really beautiful journey, to be truthful, in the sense that we started very tentative, trying to figure out learn first what services Kooyoora could offer, and then to try to discern how that would fit into our quite complex and very distributed structure. We came in, though, with an absolute clarity, in the sense that we knew that we were struggling as a church under the weight of our distributed nature, in terms of being consistent and transparent and open in relation to both redress matters and complaint matters. And so our first intention, as we kind of explored the relationship and wondered about how we could engage with Kooyoora, we had this really clear hope that we would be able to find a place and a way to create independence for our system. And so that was a main motivation as we began. What we've experienced since has been, to be honest, probably far more than we would have ever dreamed in terms of what a relationship would be like with effectively a service provider. Because what we have found is not only the independence that we absolutely knew that we needed, but also a level of expertise which has been so comforting for us as a church. It feels to me, especially in our relationship with Fiona and the team, that we have just learnt so much from them, because they bring a level of professionalism, expertise, and reflection on their own practices for about 7 years, which we would have taken years to have achieved ourselves if we'd tried to set up something in our own right. So for us, I just constantly quote the things that I have learned particularly from Fiona, as I'm talking with our House of Bishops. I'm able to quote statistics. I'm able to offer insights, which have been so helpful to us as a church, but that we would have taken, as I said, years to have achieved in our own right. So for us, not only have we kind of felt like we've engaged a service, and that's been a really successful and happy relationship, but we've also gained a colleague in a very different, in what is and has been a very difficult area to navigate well. And so for all of, I think I would speak for all of our bishops when they would say it has been a relief to be able to hand over these responsibilities that we've now asked Kooyoora to manage for us, and to then know that even though we've had, as you would expect, some learnings on the way, some workings out to have to do, all of that, we are nevertheless in such a different place than we were before we started this process. And that's true also if we have within Aotearoa, New Zealand and the Pacific, we also have two independent, a registrar and deputy registrar. So we do not use the registrar process, if you like, that Kooyoora did or does and offers in the Australian context. We have a New Zealand-based registrar and deputy registrar, but they too, it feels like to me that all of those kind of entities, our House of Bishops, our registrars, and what's called our Ministry Standards Commission, and Kooyoora, and then our little Korowai team, which is basically helps to make sure it all operationalizes. It feels like we have created a little jigsaw that just feels both secure for the church, but also is able to deliver so much more than we could ever have dreamt of.
Great. So you've spoken quite a bit about some of the benefits. Can I ask you what maybe the biggest impact working with Kooyoora has had?
Oh, that's a great question. The biggest impact, probably the sense around consistency, I would say, would be one of the biggest impacts. That because we're so distributed, and previously every bishop was trying to manage within their own diocese or Marangi their own complaints and create whatever systems they could to manage that. And bluntly, because we're a relatively small church, the system usually was the bishop. And maybe their EA or their PA. That was pretty much as far as it went, or they might have had an archdeacon helping them out. So yeah, for us, that sense around we've got that sense now that we have a consistent eye over it all, and that means an awful lot to us, because we knew that we were lumpy at times. That one complainant's experience in one part of our province might have been different than another person's experience, and we didn't want there to need. We felt that wasn't what a wholehearted response to the Royal Commission would look like. Yeah.
Would you recommend Kooyoora to somebody in a similar situation to you?
I would. We would do the full Philip Freer thing of going anywhere and saying, this has been our experience.
Mm,
Yeah, we certainly would. We wouldn't say, oh, look, do this and all your problems will be over completely. We all still struggle. These are, the complaints space and the redress space, these are hard and heart-rending spaces to navigate.
mm,
And so it's not like we can say, oh, well, all you need to do is to take the Kooyoora pill and everything will be fine. We still have to struggle at our own end with
mm.
our own culture, with our own, working with our own church and with our own people around healthy processes. But nevertheless, I would absolutely say that all of our team and our House of Bishops would wholeheartedly recommend Kooyoora.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Are there any particular aspects of our service delivery that you haven't mentioned already that you might want to draw on or reflect
I
on?
would probably want to give a particular shout out to your redress team,
Mm,
partly because, again, very, very hard space to navigate well, and probably the area that we felt that we were struggling with the most. And so, your redress team is a small team, but the expertise that has come there and the way that that work has been done has been enormously beneficial to us.
mm.
So I really would want to give a shout out for redress. It's what we know is that our most vulnerable survivors are in really safe hands, and that's enormous for a church which is in the recent aftermath of a royal commission, where we are working with a whole new experience of levels of redress requests coming forward and stories to be told. And we are finding the work that the redress team are doing, and Trevor, the redress manager, their compassion and their care for our survivors, it has been enormously beneficial and really, really appreciated.
Great. What do you wish more people knew about Kooyoora?
That's another great question, isn't it? Um, I would say probably that for a small team, they bring together such a level of experience and expertise, both prior to the work that often members of the team have done before joining Kooyoora, but also then through the kind of culture and the way that the team is brought together. Um, yeah, I would just want people to really know just what level of expertise is in that room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
It's interesting because we're a three tikanga church, because we have a lot of different cultural, issues, if you like. Issues is a poor word, choice of words. A lot of different cultural aspects, which we would love to see and really honoured and elevated. We've come over to do some training, bringing our stories to
you.
the Kooyoora table so that they could learn with us and from us about our particular context. But every time we've come over and come to bring training, we've come away feeling like we're the ones who also got trained.
Lovely. So that brings me to the end of my formal questions. Was there anything else you wanted to add or didn't have the chance to mention?
Um, yes, I guess I'd want to give a shout out again to the Australian Church. For us in our province of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the Pacific, you have shown us a way to respond to a Royal Commission, and we're appreciative of that. And so we have a great deal of gratitude
Mm.
for whoever ended up with first the German idea and then the development into a service like Kooyoora, because again, to try to have replicated that ourselves It would have taken us years to have got to the point where we were right from the day we stepped in. And secondly, I doubt it would have been affordable for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Sue. That was really, really helpful, really insightful. I really appreciate your time today.